Today I'm going to talk to you about the standard form of a linear equation. There are three different ways to write linear equations: slope-intercept form, which we've already discussed, standard form, and point-slope form. This is the standard form. The a, b, and c could represent any numbers, and the x represents an x coordinate, the y represents a y coordinate. When you're making a graph from an equation in standard form, you have three different options for how to go about making the graph. You could put the equation in slope-intercept form in order to have information to make your graph. You could graph any 2 points by choosing different values for the x's and then seeing the corresponding y coordinates. Or you could graph the x and y intercepts. First, let me show you how you would put this equation, which is in standard form, into slope-intercept form. You would begin by getting the y by itself. We want it to say y equals. So we would subtract 2x from both sides. Remember that what you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. Okay, these terms cancel out, and we bring down the 3y equals negative 2x plus 9. Since those are not like terms, you do not combine them. Last, we're going to divide both sides by 3. And when you do that, you have to divide each term by 3. So your equation in slope-intercept form is y equals negative 2/3 x plus 3. So now we're going to graph by starting with our y-intercept here in the equation, the 3, which we've already learned about slope-intercept form, so we know that this number is the y-intercept. And from here we're going to go down 2 and over 3 and plot another point, and then repeat and draw our line from left to right. So that's the first way that you could go about graphing an equation in standard form, to put it into slope-intercept form. You could also graph an equation in standard form by just finding any 2 points on the line. Okay, so I could create a table of values, of x and y values. I would typically select integers, numbers that are going to be easy to put into my equation. So for example, I might substitute a 1 for the x and maybe a 2 for the x, and then I'll use this equation to determine the corresponding y values. Okay, so if I substitute a 1 for the x, then 3 times 1 plus 2 times a number should equal 12. Okay, so 3 times 1 is 3. I'm just going to simplify the equation. Then I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. Divide both sides by the 2. And I get the corresponding y value of 4.5. So when x is 1, the y is 4.5. Now let's figure out what the y coordinate would be when the x is 2. Okay, 3 times 2 would be 6. I'm just going to simplify the equation. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So when the x coordinate is 2, the corresponding y would be 3. So now I can plot this graph using just those 2 points. So I would go to the point where x is 1 and y is 4.5, and then where x is 2 and y is 3, and put another point. And just with those 2 points, I can go ahead and construct my line using a straight edge. I draw the arrows at the end to show that this graph continues beyond the portion of the coordinate plane that I've shown. Another way that you could graph an equation in standard form, notice that this equation is also in standard form, the x and the y are both on the same side of the equation, would be to use x and y intercepts. X and y intercepts are points that are on the x or y axis. So the x-intercept is on the x-axis, the y-intercept is on the y-axis. A point on the y-axis, anywhere along this axis, is going to have an x-coordinate of 0. So in order to determine the y-intercept, you simply substitute a 0 for the x. So again, I'm going to draw a chart, and again, I'm going to be finding 2 points in order to make my graph. However, I'm specifically going to look for points on these axes. First, I'll substitute a 0 for x to determine the y-intercept, and then I'll substitute a 0 for the y-coordinate to determine the x-intercept. Okay, so 4 times 0 plus 8y is equal to 16. So all I've done is substitute 0 for the x to see what the corresponding y value should be. 4 times 0 is 0, so I can simply mark that term out, cancel it out. So 8 times some number equals 16. And of course your y value would be 2. So my y-intercept is at 0, 2. To find my x-intercept, I will substitute 0 for the y. Eight times 0 is 0, so that term is now canceled out. And when I solve for x, I get that x equals 8. So the point 8, 0 is going to be my x-intercept. With these 2 points, I can draw the graph of this equation. Typically, when an equation is in standard form, this is the method that is most commonly taught, although the other two also work